The immediate days were horrible because we went right after we saw our house gone. We drove to my son's house, and then we drove to my mom's house. And it was a cemetery of chimneys.
Imagine driving up your driveway, visualizing your house, and then visualize your house not in ruins. Nothing. Everything in your whole life. I'm screwed. I'm done. There's nothing I can do.
Welcome to the podcast of New Way Home Care, Connecting is Caring, where we follow the stories that unite us and highlight the care that is found in every corner of our community. I'm Sam Gopinathan with New Way Home Care, based in Pasadena, California. We have some very special guests with us here today, Judy and Vance. Judy and Vance, they lost a home in the Eaton Fire that happened in January. Thank you both for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Our hearts are with you both who lost your homes in the Eaton Fire. Personally, I can only imagine what you went through. Yet your strength and your grace through it all reminds us that even when life takes so much, the spirit within us, that remains unbroken. Thank you again for coming on our podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your home, your life before January 7th?
Sure. Our home was the hub of the family. We celebrated Christmas, Halloween, Thanksgiving. It was just where everybody culminated. I mean, we lived there for 38 years. Our kids grew up there. Their friends grew up there. So Altadena, when we moved there, it was a very different community.
Mm-hmm.
It was just fun. Everybody all the neighbors are very into everybody. Everybody cares about everybody. So our home was the hub. This year was different. Thanksgiving, we had no home, so everybody's scattered. Christmas is going to be the same way. And we just want to come back to the community and give back to the community like we did. Halloween, the last year that we did big, we had 5,000 kids. It was great.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we give back to the community. We didn't charge. Watching them come in and enjoying one night, it was just fantastic. And we want to come back. This is our home. We want everybody to enjoy our home again like we did before.
Halloween, 5,000 kids. I mean, I have two boys, and for them, no other festival is coming even close to what Halloween is for them. And Halloween is a fun time for them. And for you to host, 5,000 kids in your home, what did you do? I mean, how did you do all that?
Well, it was not only the kids, it was also the parents, because we get a group of parents that would come down, just to watch the activities and stuff going on. It would take about 35 minutes to walk through the whole thing, and people would wait in line for like an hour and a half. And we had people...
They come inside your house?
No, it was all in the front. Oh, it was all in the front. Yeah, you would actually walk down the walkway, you'd turn to the left, and you'd walk down like another pathway, which was just like a little corridor of only 3 feet wide for about 40 feet, and it opened up into a big tent. Which it was all it was like a little blood and gory, which was neat. Then you'd walk out of that down through another little path or another little tunnel, and then to the front of the house to actually get the candy. And then you'd walk out in front of the house down the driveway where you go through 2 more mazes. And at the very end, you'd have the chainsaw person there chasing people with the chainsaw, which was good. But there was a nice article in the Pasadena Star News.
Yes.
That a lady who went to college, PCC, and she had to do an article, and she decided to do it on our home at Halloween. And it was a really nice article because she had mentioned that there were a lot of kids that grew up with it that started, when they were, like 5 or 6 years old. And every year they'd come by and go through and, get scared. And we had, some people would, FaceTime or Facebook and say, hey, we hit this, the house is sad because the Halloween house had burnt, with the fire. So, but yeah, every year it got bigger and bigger, which was a lot of fun. And our councilman at the time, it was Michael Antonovich, then Catherine Barger, they would actually pay for the permit to close the street down because there was 2 other families that really did it, the Halloween thing at the same time on our street. So it was a whole street neighborhood event, which was a lot of fun.
How long does it take for you to plan all this?
Well, I designed it and then he built it.
Uh-huh.
We had to change it every year. Kids are very smart. They remember.
They remember from the last year.
They remember. We did one year Indiana Jones, Walking Dead, Stranger Things.
All clowns.
All clowns. People hate clowns. So we did one tent full of clowns.
Mm-hmm.
So, we changed it up. But it took him...
We'd always get, my friend owns Mountain View Mortuary, and we'd always get the hearse from him, and that would be in the front yard too. And it was just like all more like, blood and gory and stuff, which was fun. But the thing is, which was neat, is it'd take about a month and a half to set up for it. And we would actually have people, hundreds of people, driving by the week before watching it, progress. And it was neat because, you'd see the people, they'd say, hey, can we go through it because we're not going to be here Halloween night? Oh, sure. So then you're walking it through and stuff like that. But the one main thing is that after it was over, because we'd always stop at 10 o'clock because, the permit was good till 10. And then we'd have around 25 people that would work it, helping us. And then at that point, we would start to tear it down. So when you drove by the next morning, everything was gone like it wasn't even there. And so we'd still get a couple hundred people drive by the next day and say, oh, you got to come by and see this house. They drive by and they keep driving, where is it? And they couldn't find it. So, but that was like, it was like a magical thing. It was like here today and gone tomorrow,
Yeah. And you also had the kids involved in the whole process.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah.
As the kids were growing up, their friends would come and help. And, we always had people, wanting to do it, from my work and Judy's work, they'd come and they'd help, just to scare people,
Yeah, they also got service hours.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that they got service hours for the amount of time that they would put in there. And then we had different communities come by as well, which was great. We had
the Optimist Boys Home over on Avenue 64. And so they would come over and they would help, set up or tear down at times. And, these are kids, which they went to the Boys Optimist Home and they were like, oh yeah, I'm not scared. These, they're from like 15 years old up to 18. And they're like, oh, I'm not scared. This isn't going to scare me, whatever it is. We just scared the living heck out of them. It was funny.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And, the people, it was just like, there was this one lady one time, she would always, in a stroller, her daughter, which was probably about 4 or 5, go down there. And the daughter was always intrigued just because of all the motion or all the movements and the colors and things like that. And she's like, this is terrible. It's like, why do you have this? Why do you have that? She said, she was on the news station one. She's like, I was forced to walk down the street. And I'm like, there's other blocks you can walk down, but she was intrigued. And so she wanted to walk down it, Yeah. But no, it was just a lot of fun. Just giving back at that.
And again, that made you kind of the pillar of the community. Right? I mean, your house, your neighborhood became the place.
Oh, big. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, with today's technology, the kids are just sitting there texting, you got to come see this house, and then, before you know it, you thought you'd have like 100 people or 200 people, then it was like 1,000, 2,000 more. It just kept growing. Yeah. And we'd actually have the highway patrol, which would be at each of the corners, directing traffic.
I read the article in Pasadena Star News. I mean, people from all over Southern California comes to see your home.
Yes. We had people from France, Australia.
That were visiting.
Italy. And, they weren't going to be there for Halloween, so we would let them go by, and they loved it.
Yeah, remember another gentleman, he was with the, he was on a nuclear sub, he was in the Navy in Hawaii. And he had stopped by. He's, I heard about this because we do stuff with the USS Pasadena nuke sub, number 752, which is actually in Norfolk, Virginia. But he said, oh yeah, we've heard about this, way over here and stuff like that, so it's just like word of mouth or something.
Word of mouth, yeah. And now the home is gone.
Now the home is gone now this year because we had no home. We did have 3 pieces of...
Yeah, because we have a storage unit, too, that we had some of the stuff in, because we lost like $40,000 worth of Halloween, props and things like that. And so we had another storage area, which we had some props there. And so I just brought a couple of those like hanging witches or hanging things and just, hung those in the tree anyway.
So they're hanging in the tree right now. Now they have their Santa hat.
I put a Santa Claus hat on them. So what the heck, there are protectants over the land,
Take me through what happened on Jan 7th when the fire came.
I'll let you take it.
Oh, okay. Well, we actually went out to, I think went to Home Depot and then we said, hey, let's go to Polly Loco to grab something real quick to eat. And on our way home, I said, well, we saw like 5 or 6 sheriffs flying down Colorado and then making a right onto Madre. And they just took off. I was thinking it was a car chase or something. And then all the sirens and stuff. And then we got our food through the drive-thru, and then we started driving home, and then we went down New York Exchange. As we're going down New York Exchange, there's more, you hear more fire trucks, and you see cop cars going down. And by the time we got down to the old YMCA up there at 6:31, we saw, which I have pictures of all that stuff, is where the fire had just started. So you could basically take maybe half the size of this building, and that was like the flames itself. And I'm like, this is not good. This is bad. And because the winds at that time were probably, I don't know, maybe like 70 miles an hour or something. Then we went home, and I went up on top of our roof, and I got videos of that where we're watching at that time, which was only like 10 minutes later. By the time I got up on the roof, you could see the flames were almost to the top of the mountain. I mean, it was going at least, over 100 feet. It seemed like a second, the way the winds were going, because the sparks went off at 6:11. The fire started at 6:17, and at 6:31 is where we had seen it, where it had started. And then by the time I was up there, I think it was around like 7 o'clock-ish, where you could just see it just traveling straight up the mountain. And we had been through fires before, like in 2000, or I think it was 1993 and then 2003. And in your wildest dreams, we're saying it'll never come down here. There's no way.
You're much further away from the mall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We're down like above the golf course, the country club in Altadena. And there's no way. There's no humanly possible way it would ever get down to here. Plus, you'd say, hey, by then, the fire department, they'll stop it from here to there. But then as it kept going, it's kept growing and growing. And then, you didn't see any activity. We didn't have any warning whatsoever. There was nobody coming out. I mean, you'd hear like a siren once in a while here or there, and that was it. We had one of my neighbors, 3 houses down. He was driving around, and my next door neighbor, we're like looking there, and he said, hey, there's a house on fire 2.5 blocks down the street. He said, let's go see if we can put it out. And it was at 2466 Morrisley, right below Homewood at the corner. And we went there, and the fire was just in the front brush area. And so, we jumped out of his truck, and we had masks on, but no eye protected. And then I went ahead and put the fire out in the front because the wind's blowing south. So there's no more flames or anything coming south. So, the house, saved that house. But then the house across the street, which was a friend of ours, but I couldn't find a hose there, and it was hard to see at the same time. And then there was no way the following 3 houses in a row on the east side of Morrisley, there's no way that it could have done anything. Because the winds were at that time, they were probably about 80 miles an hour. Some video of the palm tree on fire, and it's just showing the winds, hundreds of thousands of embers, sparks coming off of that palm tree, going west. And then I'm like, what? And then by that time, my friends, they took back off, and I'm there. I'm like, okay, I got to get back to our own home. And so as I was walking down Morrisley, it was just like, it was hard to see because you're getting the embers and the stuff like that, or the smoke and everything in your eyes and stuff. And I actually passed Brayburn. I'm like, I feel like I went too far. So then I actually backtracked, and then I find Brayburn. I'm like, okay, so I start running down the street, and remember this family was driving this way, going east. I'm like, guys, you got to turn around and go back the other way. And so as I continue to run down to our house, you could start to see a little, and this was at 11:30-ish at night. And then we get back to our house, and then Judy, but first of all, when we got back home at 7 o'clock-ish, 6:45, we start watering our yard down, watering our home down, saying, hey, because the embers were flying miles, they could fly miles in the air, miles. And as we're sitting there watering everything down, our neighbor to the west, because his yard is mainly all mulch, and it was little fires all over the place. So it was going back and forth, watering that down. Then the neighbor's house across the street, the same thing with the house in Homewood, because at that time, the winds are coming southwest, and there was like no stopping it whatsoever. And it's like, are we helping? We think we are. Instead, we should have been thinking of getting things out of our home, but then we say, hey, nothing's going to come down this far. But at around 12 o'clock, I'm up on top of the roof, and I see the flames going up and over the mountain. I'm like, thank God, the fire's gone. We made it. And then a half hour later, it was like a hellstorm. I mean, it came back with a vengeance. Like it was like you couldn't even explain it. It was, next thing I know, I was back up on top of on our garage, and I could see the house 4 houses down, actually 5 houses down, was completely in flame. And then it hit the next house. Then it hit the next house, and I'm like, wow, we're screwed, And then Judy was there till 2 o'clock. And because she had lung cancer a couple of years ago, and then she just couldn't handle it anymore. And then she had a little episode. She can tell you what happened there when she left. But we actually had 2 suitcases that we were going to go to Cancun on that Friday, the 9th. And I say, hey, let's just put the suitcases in the car and our passports just in the event they don't let us back up here, which could happen. And so she did that, and then she took off. And then let you tell her what happened to you there.
So I left because the embers, when I started, the embers were very small. By the time they left, they were huge.
A foot in diameter.
And I'm thinking, first I couldn't breathe. So I decided to take our little dog, put her in the front seat, and then just take off. Went down Porter to Mendocino and made a right turn, not realizing that the country club was already on fire because I couldn't see anything. So as I'm driving down, I see a tree branch on the floor, and I almost hit it because you couldn't see. So I slammed on the brakes, and my poor puppy slammed all the way to the bottom of the seat. So I picked her up, grabbed her. I had fire on my left, fire on my right, and then had embers underneath the car.
Wow.
And I grabbed her and I said, baby girl, we're either going to die here or I'm going to just get us out. Put in reverse, went around, and instead of turning around, I don't know what I was thinking. I never thought the country club was on fire. So I headed towards the fire. And when I realized they were on fire, I'm going, oh my God. So I took the street over, not Holliston, but the trees, all the way down. But you could not see anything. You couldn't breathe. It took me about an hour to get out of that area because it was so dark and everything was on fire. It was just horrific.
Because we lost electricity around 7:30. 7:30, they check her out.
We really had water.
I had water till 4 o'clock in the morning.
We didn't get notices.
No.
We didn't get, fire department wasn't there.
Well, there was one around 11, maybe like around 12 o'clock or 11:45 or somewhere in there, that I'm up on top of the roof of the garage because my neighbor's backyard's on fire too. And I'm up on top of our garage, which was separated from the house. It's like 800 square feet. And I'm watering the top of it and the sides of it and everything. And at that time, his yard, the whole thing's on flames. And all of a sudden I see these engine lights. And it was a volunteer fire department. I don't know where they were from. It seems like it was just like a mirage. They were here and gone, but they actually put his whole fire out in the whole backyard, part of his house, and the front yard. They put it out. And then they went ahead and, left.
Well, what they told me was, you need to get out. We're here to save lives. We're not here to save structures. We can't. It was just too much. And, at the beginning, I was angry. I was upset for a lot of reasons. We never got the notices.
It's home.
It's my home.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the fire department. But when I realized how hot it was running, it was very hot.
Like 3,000, between, like 2,500 to 3,000, degrees.
Their suits, their firemen's suits are not meant to withstand that kind of
heat. Yeah.
Plus, I saw tornadoes of fire coming at us. It was an actual tornado coming. That's how the wind was just, I can't even begin to tell you.
Because where our property is, what's strange is where the property is, there's like a corridor that goes directly down because January 22nd, 2022, we had a 100-year-old deodar tree that was in our front yard that actually, because we had another big windstorm. It was in January.
Yeah.
And the whole tree is 11:40 or 11:47 at night. We're both in bed and all of a sudden, Judy said, did you hear that? Did you feel it? I'm like, what? I don't feel anything. And she said, I'm going to go look out the front window. So she went to look out the front window and she screamed and yelled, the tree is down. I'm like, what tree? A branch came down. Big deal, And all of a sudden I go out there, I open up the front drape and it was like the Twilight Zone. The whole tree, the deodar, uprooted. Everything was down and it landed at a little corner of our house, smashed I had made a steel fence. And it crashed on the fence and it landed on our neighbor's house. The fence actually saved the tree from going to the first level of his house. But on the house where it hit on the second story that was just attic space where he was sleeping on the other side, which was good. And the wind, and then that's when the wind actually knocked down a couple of the telephone poles at the golf course, at the driving range. So there's like a corridor of wind that comes directly down there.
It's like
tunnel.
It's a wind tunnel. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have now with the fire, the wind tunnel was just incredible.
Yeah. And then that fire department just got up and left. And so then she had taken off at like around 2 o'clock And I just stay there because your adrenaline's going. And so I'm just staying there, just watering everything and stuff like that. And then here comes like around 3:30, our son, who also lost his house up on Mount Low. And then our mother-in-law, Judy's mom, lost her house up on Wapello. So you got 3 generations losing their homes completely.
Oh my God.
And I had to go because my mother-in-law, she had a gate, an automatic gate, which was shut. So I had to go up around 7:30. I got a call from my brother-in-law. I said, hey, can you go up and get mom out of the house, open up the gate? And so I went up there and
she didn't want to leave. She kept saying, it's not going to come here.
It's not going to come here.
I'm going to go to sleep. And you're saying you have to leave.
So I went up there, got the gate open. And then, she left and I went back to the house. But then our son came down at 3:30 and said, hey, you got to get out of here. Because at that time, we had embers a foot and a half in diameter, which I got photos of those. And he said, you got to get out of here because there's nothing you can do because 2 houses over, the house is on fire because every house is going to the west. And then my neighbor Rod next door, he saw a big beam from the neighbor's house launch into his 2nd story bedroom window. And he said, I'm screwed. I'm done. There's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. And so he left. And so then I told our son, I said, hey, you need to help me get, because I had 5 classic cars in the garage and 2 up on a car rack. I said, you need to help me get some cars out. They're like, okay. So I grabbed some keys by the front door of the cars. And, it's like whenever you get ready to go do like a car show, you go out there to start the car, but it's like, it doesn't start up. Well, the grace of God, each of the cars, the first one was the Camaro I got out, 69, where it started right up. And we had opened up the garage manually, the door, and then we got the car out. I shut the door, and then we took it down to a place where we're living now in Sinaloa, below New York. And because it was a house I had on the market for sale, but we took it off. It was vacant, and I just parked it in the driveway. And then we went back up to the house. I jumped in his truck, and we went back up to the house. And then I got the little 56 BMW Isetta out, and we drove that down Sinaloa, and you couldn't see in front of you. So you're almost going by memory, just curving down like this. And luckily there were no cars in the street because you couldn't see in front of you. It's like a snowstorm. Mm-hmm. And we dropped that one off. Then I came back and got the Porsche out. And then the other 2, the little 57 MGA and the 67 Mustang, they were up on top of a car rack and we couldn't get those down because we had no electricity to lift it up to be able to get the cars down.
Okay.
But then this is like almost 4:00 and I'm like, we need to grab, and I'm just looking in the garage at all the other, whether it antiques, the signs on the walls, all that kind of stuff. It's like, what do you grab? It's like, there's too much to even think about it. But then we grabbed 2 of the motorcycles, which was a little 64 Cafe Racer and good old Richard Petty's CL100 1970s pit crew bike, which I had that. And we grabbed those and threw those in the back of the truck. And as I was leaving at 4:07, watching video, because the neighbor on the west house was on fire. And then the 2 houses in the next door neighbor to the east was. But when I got down to Porter and Mendocino, there was 3 fire trucks, which one was a hook and ladder, and then another fire truck. And then I was talking to the battalion chief. I said, hey, is there any way you can go and save the 2 houses? There's 2 houses left. And he said the same thing, we're here to save people, not structures. He said, but I'll go take a look. And so I'm like, okay, so by the grace of God, when we come back tomorrow, it'll still be there. And so then I ended up going to Monrovia where Judy's brother was, where we stayed overnight, I should say, like a couple hours because we couldn't sleep. We got back up at like 7:00 and we're like, we can't stay here. We need to go back and see what's going on. So then we actually, we drove separate cars, left hers at Stater Brothers and jumped in my truck and went up to the house and we made a left off of Allen onto Brayburn. Like, oh, wow, there's houses there here. All of a sudden, there was a house that was Richard and Dale's house. All of a sudden, oh my God, their house is gone. And it was a block house made out of blocks. And
the fire was still going.
And then my other friend, good old Balian's house, he just happened to call and he said, hey, do you know anything about the fire? He says, Mike, we're going by your house right now. Because he was out of town. I'm like, your house is gone. He's like, no. Like, your kid has no, your house is gone. Your guest house is gone. They're to the ground. No way. I'm like, yeah. And as we proceeded to go west on Brayburn, one house on the next 4 houses on the north side were gone, but the south side, the houses were there. Then we get to Chernobyl, and all of a sudden, I'm looking down the street, and it's like around 7:40 in the morning. You see this, it's an eerie glow, and you're looking down the whole street, and the whole street's gone. I mean, we're talking about houses that were, the Englishes and Spanishes, 2-story houses built in the early 1900s, just gone. Except for my friend Richard's, which is just a little 1-story Spanish that was there. And your heart just sunk and you think that you're dreaming. And then we get down to our house, and all of a sudden, you probably saw that one picture in the Star News. It just shows the facade of the house. And it was, it's still today, you look at it, it still seems so surreal. It seems like we could just drive back to our home and walk right into it. Mm-hmm. But there was still fire, like in our basement and garage area where that was attached to the house. The fire was still going from the stuff down below. And I looked down below at the garage, and the garage was completely gone. Now, the neighbor's house behind us, which was built it was in the late 50s, but they had just redid the whole house like about 2 years ago. So it had all the fireproof stuff on it and stuff. They had a couple of windows that were cracked from the heat, but their house survived.
Oh, the intense of the fire, I didn't realize it until I went to the garage and saw the actual lift. It actually crushed within the two classic cars. Mm-hmm. It was embedded into them.
Yeah, because the Mustang, the 67 Mustang, it actually just bent in half.
You couldn't even tell it was a car there.
Yeah, you could. And then the other little MGA, it was just sitting there on the ground. You could just see the two little headlights. And then everything else,
everything that's just gone.
Everything's gone.
Wow. But while we were there, you would look to the south end of Brayburn, and you would see fires starting on other houses down. And there was nothing. There was no fire department, and you're seeing this black smoke going. Oh my God, their house is going on fire now.
It's very surreal when you drove back.
Oh yeah. Oh, we were driving, and we'd see one or two sheriffs driving around frantically, not knowing what to do. We didn't see any fire trucks at all. Uh-huh. And I mean, I find out later that a lot of them were over at JPL because they didn't want the little city within the city, to go up, of course. Uh-huh. But there was no air support. The winds had subsided that next morning. Uh-huh. So I don't see why they couldn't have had air support there. They had air support down in the Palisades. Yeah. A lot of the services went to the Palisades because that started around like 10:30 in the morning. And then this is just like a fluke thing that happened up here in Altadena, which, just right here. You had front row seats here.
So the west side started burning the next day. There was no wind, but we had no air support and there was no fire. And the problem with my son's house is we went over there and he saw his house burned.
It was like around 7:30 or so.
7:30 the next day, and there was no water.
Yeah, he was out of water. No water whatsoever.
They shut the water.
Because they shut the water because they were saying that with so many houses and things burning is that the water lines were completely open, and exposed, and water was leaking out all over the place. There was no pressure. Uh-huh. So, but it's, it's just like, who knows? I mean, will we ever know the real story? The answer is no. They just tell you what you want to hear,
So we can hear what they're telling us. That's about
absolutely.
Exactly.
It's, it was surreal. For the longest time, I was not able to go to the house because the facade was there. Uh-huh. So every time I went there, I would break down.
It's very traumatic.
Yeah, it was very traumatic. So when the Army Corps was there tearing down, I went through a whole mental trauma again. Now I can go up there and go, okay, I don't see my house. I see dirt.
And the vision of what could be there.
How was the immediate days after the fire for you?
The immediate days were horrible because we went right after we saw our house gone. We drove to my son's house, and then we drove to my mom's house. It was a cemetery of chimneys. That's all there was.
Eerie. It was just an eerie.
You couldn't see the mountain.
Futuristic.
Uh-huh. Now you saw all the way to the
all the way to the mountain.
All the way up there.
Futuristic apocalypse. It was just like crazy.
Cars were still burning. Gas lines were burning.
Gas lines burnt for days. Even like my neighbors. I saw a gas guy coming down the street, and I'm like, "Hey, can you go shut this gas line out?" He says, "No, I can't do anything. You need to call in and have them." Or take it off, to turn it off. But there was another issue which I never did check on it, but they needed to let the gas lines run out of gas because they shut the main one off just so all the gas would be out of the lines. There was something to deal with pressure or something like that could maybe it would blow up instead.
I couldn't function. I couldn't think. I remember calling my boss saying, my house is gone. And my boss said, take whatever time you need off, figure out what you're going to do. We had already planned this trip. I called my kids.
And she said, we have to cancel it.
And I said,
why?
Cancel it.
I'm like, why? Why cancel it? A friend of ours, Becky and Steve, went with us, and they said, hey, if you need to cancel it, we can cancel it. I'm like, no. I'm like, we have nothing. We have nothing here. It was the best thing for us to do is to go. And so we actually went. It was for a week, and, we had good days, and, so what good days where you'd sit there and like, hey, it's a great time here in Cancun. We're having a great time. And all of a sudden you're thinking, what just happened that we went through?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, hey,
surreal.
yeah.
It's surreal. Yeah.
Very surreal. Yeah.
Mind you, we have the memories are going to be always in our heart. We didn't lose anybody. The people that
That's a blessing.
19 people. Yeah. 19 people
that
passed.
died, that was
Yeah.
it was traumatic. Plus, it was uncalled for. They never got a notice, like my mom.
Yeah.
My mom said, I'm going to go to sleep. They never got anybody up there saying, you got to get out. That gentleman that was in the news that he called 911 so many times. Hey,
He was in a wheelchair.
He was in a wheelchair and his son was in a wheelchair. Somebody should have gone up there.
Right. I mean, we evacuated 23 of our clients. We didn't get any warnings or anything, but we didn't know if the authorities are going to call us, or who is responsible, take the person. We didn't wait for that. And we just went ahead and even whether the fire is going to get there or not, as a safety precaution, we just, took them out.
Yeah.
Right.
And in hindsight, that is the best thing that we did because we never got a call from anyone.
Yeah.
And, now that I really think at the beginning, you would have talked to me and I was very bitter about everything. Now it was just so big that
There's nothing they could do.
the fire department or the police department knew what to do. They didn't know where to go.
I think the scope of the fire was so big.
It was
I mean,
huge.
despite the best efforts, I think this is still bigger than what they could do with the best intentions.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It was just, will it happen again in our lifetime? The answer is no, and, it was something that is like, there's not a day that goes by that we don't think of something that we lost. I mean, I had my little old Roy Rogers suede jacket when I was 6 and 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And our daughter just had a little baby girl. And I'm like, in December, I'm like, I'm going to take it back to her for the baby shower. And maybe I'll mail it to her. No, I'm going to take it back with me, And so I decided to take it back with me. Of course, then I didn't because it burnt in the fire. But then my uncle, Purple Heart, that is, was in a plaque on the wall, that was gone. But the good thing about that is because I called the veterans and they said, what's nice is that when they had made over 600,000 Purple Hearts when they were going to go into Japan, because that's how many they figured that they would loot, people would die.
Mm-hmm.
And so being that it turned a different way is that they still have all these Purple Hearts that they had from back then. So they just said, hey, just send us your uncle's information and we'll just verify it and then we'll just send you one.
Oh, that's nice.
And so I still have to do that. So yeah, which is really nice. But it's like,
it's really sad. I mean, our neighbors, luckily we all get together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have like parties.
You still get together.
oh, it was like,
That's nice.
Yeah.
it'd be like once every other month. It was
What
just
do you
like a little, different people's house.
That
made it
survived.
survive.
They open their homes and then
Or a
we
restaurant.
potlucks, and it's nice to see everybody there because we're our street, our community was so tight, that section.
Well, because a lot of them we didn't even know because they're from another block or whatever it is. But then, they'd remember us from the Halloween thing. And, I was like, hey, oh, yeah, I remember you now,
And it's good to hear that everybody wants to come back
Mm-hmm.
and rebuild and, get together again. So we do have those good moments and we share stories.
Like our neighbor across the street spent 2 years, he purchased the house and he spent 2 years on rebuilding the home. And he was going to move into it at the end of January. And then this happened and then the house went up and nothing's there, so he's in the process now of getting ready to start to rebuild. But I mean, could you imagine you spend 2 years, buying a property, you're redoing the whole thing, you're getting ready to move in at the end of the month and it's gone, but people said, I don't know what I can't imagine. I'm like, well, yes, you can imagine. Imagine driving up your driveway, visualizing your house and then visualize your house in ruins, nothing, everything in your whole life. I mean, I'm talking about, I had like another suitcase when my dad was in the Navy and my uncle was the Army Navy. They were corresponding with my grandpa back and forth and they had a whole suitcase full of letters. And every once in a while I go in there and never read those letters. And
well, those are memories that it's in our heart. Our baby pictures.
Great-great-grandparent tin pictures from the, made out of tin and stuff like that. Oh.
So everything's gone. But, what we're thankful about is that we're alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you just realize it's just stuff.
It's just stuff.
It's
stuff.
Yeah.
Can you find the stuff? Yeah, I mean, you could find the stuff. Maybe it won't be your original one, but do you really want it? No. I mean, because like we talked about it, it's like we talked to the kids last year around this time. We say, hey, Mom and I are getting ready to start to minimize everything. What do you kids want? They're like, Mom, Dad, it's like, this really isn't our taste. We may take one or two of the Yadros or take this or that, but other than that, they don't want anything. They don't want anything. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, Judy and I were looking at each other. Well, the attic, because we had a full attic of the Halloween stuff, Christmas stuff. Oh, check. That's stuff we don't have to worry about, Stuff in the garage, check. That's all gone,
Yeah.
So that made it easy. But I mean, in reality, like Judy said, is that we're happy to be alive and here. And now we just want to, rebuild and get our lives back together. But then now just dealing with the rebuilding process is another, issue that we're having. It's not as easy as what they say with all the different rules and regulations that they have now.
Tell me about that. What they're dealing with.
Well, originally the house was built in 1924. The garage was underneath the house. Okay, because our house slopes in the back. And I was talking to the architect. I was like, why don't we just go ahead and put a whole garage underneath the house? Because you own the land. You might as well occupy the whole property. And he said, well, that's a great idea. So I have a garage. We have a garage that's 3,100 square feet. And it's all below ground, below level. So when you walk on our sidewalk from street level, you walk into the house, you don't even see it. You walk on the first level. So this rule came up, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, that they say any structure of your home that's underneath the house, whether it's a garage or a basement, they're going to consider that as a first floor, which means that, and I'm like, well, why is that?
Doesn't make any sense.
Nobody can give me any sense at all.
Yeah.
So then they were saying that, so if the garage is 9.5 feet tall, then that means, because we can go up to 30 feet. Any lot size 20,000 or less go up to 30 feet. Anything over 20,000 square feet in the lot can go up to 35 feet. And before, our house was probably over 35 feet because we had a little granny flat that was added to the house in 1927. And so now with them measuring that 9.5 feet, that means that we can only go up 21 feet with the house. So if my neighbor puts in a house, and they're considering that a 2-story house. So if you drive down, you say, oh, this is a 2-story house. Where? From the street level, it's a 1-story house. So like if my neighbor builds a house 28, feet high, 2-story, technically you can see it's a 2-story house. And the other neighbor does the same. Our house, even though there's other homes there that are 1-story, 2 stories itself. And I was telling G, I'm like, well, we're going back with the English Tudor, is that we have 3 different peaks. Each peak on the side, the east and the west side, are at 21 feet. In the middle, we just wanted to go up like another 3.5 feet. And so, which is only maybe like 5 feet wide by 10 feet long, just the entryway, and that's it. And so they say we have to go with this new law that they passed through, which is to help escalate things, which is a good thing for the county. They had stated that, oh, well, we need to do a variance for yours. It's going to take at least a month and then another 2 weeks after we get our response back. And so they're actually supposed to let us know by tomorrow is the deadline that is, hey, you can either do this or you can't do that.
I hope it comes true for you.
Right.
Oh, I do. I don't think you ever did that. And there's no reason why it shouldn't. Because at that point, just that little section will only be 24.5 feet tall or 23.5 feet tall, just that little area. And that's it, but you would never, like I said, you would never realize that it would be, as they're considering it when they passed out the variance forms, they said, oh yeah, they want to build a 34.5 foot house, parts of it to be 34.5 feet. But anybody that's thinking about it would think, oh wow, they're going to put up another big house here. And they're thinking everything in the whole house is going to be the height, but it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
So hopefully it'll come to our favor on that. If not, I'll have the news media out there.
But, what's so sad about it is that when we started with the rebuilding process, in our minds, we thought, oh, this is going to be less than a year for us to do that. And it's 12 months and nothing has happened. Nothing has happened.
Where you see other houses that are, popping up right and left.
Which is nice to see on the west side. There's a lot of houses popping up, which I am so grateful that they are popping up. The county doesn't have enough manpower to push them forward, and the bureaucracy that we're landing is crazy. So that was one issue. Then we had another issue with the insurance company.
I was about to ask you about that. Yeah.
That was horrific. They paid the first section, but for personal property, we had to fight tooth and nail to the point that I hired an attorney.
I'm glad you did.
And our lovely attorney, which I am so grateful for this firm, they wrote a very nice, strong letter because they don't want to go to court The last thing an insurance company wants is to go to court. And within a week and a half, we had the balance of the funds come back to us.
I mean, they have the people that work for the insurance company, which, they're just doing their job and they're just going by routine. It's like the same thing where we have 3 different types of the insurance with the same company. 1 is personal property, 2 is housing, and 3 is structure. Structure-wise, they paid us the limit on that. The housing-wise, they kept saying, oh, well, you have this. And then all of a sudden, because all your receipts from going out to dinner and stuff like that, they would pay for that. And once we got into the rental, we'd still hand those, Judy would actually email them to him. And he said, well, let me ask you a question. She said, what's that? He said, well, do you have a stove in your dwelling right now? A kitchen. Yeah, we have a kitchen. Okay, well, since you have a kitchen, we're not going to pay for you going out to dinner anymore. Yeah. Even though we have the money that was for housing.
Oh, no, it gets better. I had to basically, and I'm going to get really personal, I had to go buy undergarments because I lost all my undergarments.
Yeah.
So I submitted that invoice and then he calls me, he goes, really? You had to go buy undergarments? I said, are you married? He goes, yeah. And I said, does your wife have only 2 undergarments? Because I had to buy undergarments. I mean,
They're getting very picky on everything.
Super picky on that.
My opinion, yeah.
It was just, I took on that task to fight the insurance company and all that. After 10 months of just going back and forth, I finally told him and I said, okay, you're going to handle them. He goes, oh, they can't be that bad. And then he calls me and he goes, oh boy.
So I started dealing with the lady with the personal property.
And
she started going through the same thing. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I'm like,
and they had no empathy.
No.
Well, at the beginning they did, but at the end, they just started being like a robot, because they're just doing their job. And once we got advanced to higher up in the insurance company, then they start noticing things.
No, because of the attorney letter.
Because of the attorney letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, we ended up going with Enstrom, Lipscomb, and Lack, which was the one that fought for Aaron Brockovich when they did the environmental thing 20 years ago. And for 17 years, all they've been doing is fighting fires. And, they know what they're doing. And they say, we'll help you out. We'll just, write a letter to them. And as soon as they did the letter, then we have the next adjuster, which was higher up than the other one. And then she's like, oh, no, I see, because we sent them videos of our Halloween thing, our Christmas setups and things like that.
We had to do a 45-page itemization of trying to remember everything we had was very difficult. It was traumatic again for me.
Yeah.
For us, for both of us. But we did it and we did that. Now, the only company that has been so grace and kind was our mortgage company. Now, mind you, when you get paid through the insurance company, the check doesn't come payable to you.
It goes to the mortgage company.
It goes payable to you and the mortgage company. So I had to give all that money there. And in the beginning, I did call them and I said, hey, you're getting this much, but I owe you this much. So are you putting that in a special account? No, we're not. And I said, well, I want you to consider to keep what I owe you because that's only fair. I get it. But give me back what I have. They said, give me a week. And within a week, they said, you're absolutely right. They were
That's nice.
Grace and kind, their level of empathy was amazing. They're great. They were great.
There are some good stories out of this too.
Oh, no, there's a lot of good stories. From the good old Bible thing, from ashes will, prosper from that and stuff. And then, you think of so many people that you run across that, you think that, the world doesn't stop. You go down to the freeway, you see hundreds of thousands of cars in the freeway a day. Life goes on. It doesn't stop. You can sit there and dwell. I mean, I know people that their kids are depressed and they're dwelling and they don't know how to handle or get on with it. It's like, nothing's going to stop it except for yourself. You have to just move on.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah,
nothing's going to
really have to move on. And, my son, luckily, he's moved on and he's way ahead of us.
Because he was only 2 years, because I sold them property and they were only there they redid their house for 2 years and they had moved in. So basically a year in their brand new home, he and his wife, and then it's like, it has nothing. It's just the lives that could it have been prevented? The answer, that's a whole nother chapter. The vegetation wasn't there. The transformer wasn't empowered. But it happened and we just have to move on. And, Edison admitted guilt. And so now it's just a process of going through all the different settlement part right now. And that's just going to be another,
We have
fiasco.
some of our neighbors that have decided to buy mobile home and they're moving it to their lot until they can rebuild because they want to be in that neighborhood.
And a couple
that is a beautiful part, what you said, where you're still meeting with the neighbor. Yeah, but your community is coming back together. That's
right.
So powerful.
And, we have like a little chat thing going through if anything new or if anybody because everybody's like waiting to find out with us what the verdict is going to be for our property for tomorrow. Hey, have you heard yet? No, I haven't heard yet.
They're so sweet. They're like, do you need our help? Can we help you? Everybody's there to help each other. We want to.
That is so beautiful.
There was a couple neighbors that were basically not like a hermit, but they were just always kept to themselves. And, they were brought out into the situation. Now, we really didn't know them that well, but now we know them very well. Yeah. And two of the neighbors that I know that didn't have any insurance and to help them go through the same process, it's just a whole nother different avenue. But at the end of the day, yeah, we're moving forward. We're going forward. Many times we say, hey, we're just going to go ahead and sell the lot and move on and go someplace else. But then again, where are you going to go? We love the Altadena. We love the area. We love our location. We want it to come back, which it will. Will it be the same? No, because you'll never have these 100-year-old homes with the character built. Can you build those character homes? Semi. They'll look like it because I know some neighbors are going to build exactly what they had before, appearance-wise. But then again, the newness doesn't account for the character of the older homes from before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say, within like the building starting over here on the east side now, more, and it's still going to be, for us, if we started to do foundation wise, like next week, we'd be in probably in a year and a half. So you're still looking at a year and a half down the line. It's hard to believe. It's like Judy said, it's been a year already. That's gone by in 1 month. You're talking
about
1 year.
Months you're looking at.
Yeah.
Where do you live right now?
We're still in Pasadena because it was, the real estate, and it was a house I had on the market in December. And I told the owner, let's take it off the market. We'll put it on at the end of January. And, after the first of the year, because it's always slow right now during the holiday time. And she said, okay, no problem. And so then on the 8th of January, I called her up to Linda. I said, we lost everything. Because she said, well, how are you guys doing? I said, we're not doing good. I said, we lost everything our entire life. Everything's gone. I said, because I used to rent that house out before. It was a custom built house built in 2009, like 2,700 square feet, nice home. And I'm like, can we rent the home from you? She said, I used to rent it before. I don't need the money. So yes, you guys can rent it. I said, well, I need to do like a 2-year lease at least. She said, no problem. That's fine. So we're just very blessed. And it's only
very blessed. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's only half a mile away from our home. And that's where I actually took the cars to, hopefully, and then of course that was below New York where the fires never came down that far, except for over on the west side,
the west side got hit hard.
Yeah, that was just, and then just the lives of people. There was a total of over like 9,000 structures where you had like 7,600 homes, 1,000 multi-family homes, and like 900 commercial churches, schools, and stuff that had gone.
I think this is the biggest fire on record.
Oh, yes.
At least in this part of the...
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
And the Army Corps, very helpful.
So grateful to them.
Yeah.
Their kindness, their grace and kindness over the top. When they were demolishing the facade and the chimney, I broke down and they stopped everything. They wanted to make sure I was okay. And when they realized I was okay, then they continued.
Because the Army Corps just got done doing the Maui fire, cleanup of the Maui fires. And then they, because they knew how to run the system or work it, over here. And of course, it was the Army Corps that was in charge, but it was all the independent contractors that were doing the cleanup. A couple people decided to, at the beginning, I didn't want to do with the Army Corps. And a friend of ours worked for the environmental part of it, and he was talking to us and says, hey, it's easier, just do it. It's going to be so much easier than having an independent company come in and do it, So which it was.
So we've had really good people. We've gotten to know the neighbors that we didn't know. So this has brought us even closer
together.
Yeah. And it's nice to see everybody once in a while and share stories and laugh sometime, cry sometime.
That's important. That's very, you were talking about the, people, they're getting affected and some counseling. And did you do any counseling yourself?
I did counseling for almost 3 months. Really well, received really well. It helped me just get some of my grief out, some of my anger out because I was angry.
Yes.
I couldn't, if If I heard a fire department coming in or a fireman come in, I could not be near them. I needed to leave. Or a police, I just felt let down. But after doing the counseling and realizing what they had to put up, what they were going through, I realized it was not them.
Because they wanted, their job is to, protect and to put fires out. And a lot of them, they wanted to do it, but they just had to sit there and watch people's life burn.
Yeah. And also they didn't have water to fight the fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Big issue.
Big issue.
Big issue.
It was a big issue. I even remember telling the fireman that came and I said, leave me the hose. Just, because our fire hydrant was so close to our fire. Just leave me the hose and I'll sit here. And he looked at me, he goes, you need to leave. Your life is more important than the structure. And at the time, I did not comprehend what he was trying to tell me. And now I do. I mean, material things can be replaced. Yeah. Your life cannot.
At the time when you're going through it, you don't think in those things.
No. It's just, it is what it is. We're moving forward.
And there were so many good community outreach programs that were out there. Like the Pasadena Elks Lodge, they had like a big, people would donate things to them, and they had, like all new, clothes and stuff that you can get and take, like a place down in San Marino, Johnny Was, women clothing store. They opened up the doors.
American Red Cross was fantastic.
Come and just take whatever you need. There were so many good people or good things out there. People were donating, and there's still a place over on Woodbury and El Sereno that still has, every once in a while they'll run a thing that they have purifiers, and people just go by, show them your address where you were. They'll, give you a free, air purifier and stuff. Yeah. At the beginning I was like, I don't want to go get this stuff, but then it's just like, you have pride. It's like, no.
You need it.
You need it.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, it's amazing how minimal you need things to live. You don't need that much. And it's such a materialistic world that we live in. And I want this, I want that. And it just makes you realize you don't need all these. And when we go out, I see these people buying all this stuff just to have it. And it's like, we don't need it,
Yeah. We were donating a lot of stuff day one. By day two, they had to close down everything because the places that we were donating to, they couldn't take anymore because they had so many people coming in.
Yes.
I loved seeing that because, when something like this happened, the whole community coming together, not everybody knows what needs to be done, but they had that intent to do something good.
Correct.
Which is really nice to see.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, living spaces, we're donating mattresses. Something that you don't even
Which we
think about it, but you need it.
But you need it. Yeah. I mean, everybody, water, things that toiletries.
Hygiene stuff. Yeah.
Hygiene stuff that you never thought, wow, I do need it. We don't have anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a friend of ours called me up. She said, my dad passed away, like a year ago. And my mom lives in Arizona. And she said, I went to, her house and just cleaned all the stuff out that my dad had. And she said, he's like your size. And he also rode Harleys. And she said, do you want a couple of his Harley shirts or jackets? I'm like, well, sure, because I lost all mine. And it fit me like, he had a couple of suits and it fit me like a glove. I'm like, this is sort of freaky. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, Which, how often do you wear suits anymore? You really don't wear them that often anymore. To weddings and funerals or something.
So now we just need to move forward. Like I told them, I said, if we get the okay to build, the first thing they're building are the ADUs. So I said, let's build the ADU. Let's move in there. So at least
and then
we're
continue
there.
Yeah.
And I said, no, we're not going to live through the construction of the house. Yeah, because we'll still have, with the insurance on the housing, it's usually only good for 24 months.
Okay.
But with a national disaster like this, it goes up to 36 months to 3 years. And of course, we'll still have the monies in there because we're like, how can we use that up from the insurance money, which we have it with that? It's going to be a little bit of a twisting their arm against, hey, no, here it is, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, yeah, you're right. Because the insurance companies, and then I didn't realize until later is that somebody was telling me, well, the insurance companies are going to go back and sue Edison. So they're going to get, 70, 80% of their money that they gave out, they're going to give it back. I'm like, they're going to get it back. And it's like, yeah. And I said, that put a different perspective when I'm going back to these people to negotiate to get our money. It's like, dude, you're getting your money back anyway, from Edison because they admit a fault. So why don't you pay out what we gave you, what we got insured for? And so then that made a little bit of a different tone there too. And a lot of people don't know because there's so many people out there that still, I spoke to somebody yesterday that he's, no, I haven't picked an attorney yet. I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen and things like that, So there's still people in limbo out there that don't know what really to do after this had happened.
It's been
I think it's sad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have not sought any help, special mental help to get you out of where you're at. I think it's so important.
Very important.
You have to cleanse in order to proceed. And you have to take care of yourself first before you can tackle what's at hand.
Yeah.
For you.
I'm glad you took advantage of the counseling. That's
I did.
important.
No, I haven't done any yet. I mean, I'm the type of person, hey, I can handle it myself. But then, you think about it at times and it's like with all the buildup is just like my mind's in a different category where it's like, I think one of these days is probably going to hit and I'll probably break down really bad,
I know.
And it's just like, I'm just waiting for that to happen. But I mean, still, it's like, hey, you know what? It happened. You just deal with it. You ask God for the strength and the guidance to go forward. And then that helps me at ease and just move down to the next step.
Yeah. I mean, you're a very purposive one and you're trying to get things done and that's important. But at the same time, I think you should consider getting some help yourself because once, let's say your construction of the home and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So you probably...
I got a lot of friends that say I need a lot of help too. Yeah.
So what do you want to share to others, about how to prepare for disasters like this, how to evacuate and...
Wow, that's a huge question. How to prepare? I don't think anybody can get prepared for this. The only thing that I do now that I've learned, take lots of pictures of what you have because the insurance companies want pictures.
Pictures.
If you buy something that is expensive, we had several paintings that were original. Make sure you have the paperwork and not paper. My daughter taught me something, goes, Mom, everything has to be digitized. Put it all in your computer. Paper burns.
Very important, yeah.
Very important. So just that is super important. Reach out when the community is helping you. Take
advantage of it.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
We weren't raised
pride
like
away.
that. Yeah, we weren't raised like that. And I kept saying, wow, I feel weird accepting donations. But then I realized, okay, I have nothing, so I'm accepting it.
Main thing too is to check your insurance policy.
Oh, yes.
Because all of us are underinsured. No matter what, everybody's underinsured.
I heard so many stories of that.
I know a couple of my neighbors, they said every time their insurance guy would call me up, they say, hey, well, you need to get this insurance, get a little bit more. And they was like, okay, go ahead and give it to me. Go ahead. And they both elected to advance their insurance, whatever, policies they had. And I mean, they're sitting really well.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, I'm just one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were 40% of the people didn't have insurance in
have
Altadena.
to look
40%.
Didn't have insurance.
Did not.
And they had free and clear home too.
Yes.
Correct.
It's all gone.
Correct.
So
'cause a lot of them had, 2 or 3 homes, because in Altadena, that's where the African Americans could only purchase a home. And in the 60s and 70s. And so they would come up there. Of course, the houses back then were probably only like around $25,000, $40,000. I remember in the late 80s, you can get something for around $75,000, but then they would buy 1 or 2 and the families would buy 1 or 2 and they'd pay them off. And they said, well, we don't need insurance because, the houses are paid off. But 40% of people didn't have insurance from what we heard.
So even though
And also underinsured.
Yeah.
Even
though you paid off your home, you should have some kind of liability insurance just for your own protection. But definitely my advice to everybody is review your insurance policy in its entirety because, like us, our rebuilding cost is going to be between $600 and $900 a square feet because of everything going up. It used to be $300 a square feet. Now it's $600 to $900 a square feet.
Twice.
Yeah,
3 times.
Exactly.
So you have enough to rebuild your home right now? Probably not.
Probably not.
So that's one thing. Always keep in touch with your mortgage company. That's important. If a disaster happens, a lot of people don't know that, like us, we're rebuilding our home. So that is going to follow you for 10 years. So let's suppose we rebuild and we decide, you know what, we don't want the house. We're just going to sell. Well, when you sell, the insurance company is going to say, there's a claim for 10 years that goes against the property, which a lot of people don't know that. So that's things that you got to think about, all this stuff. Everybody that got smoke damage, their house survived, but they put a claim, that follows the property.
Goodness.
Yeah.
So
many things that we didn't know.
no,
Exactly.
a lot of things that you didn't know. Luckily, he's in real estate. I just retired from escrow. So my knowledge on those things, and this is where we help our little community. Hey, did you think about this? No. Now they're asking us to put sprinklers in the house, which is fine inside the house, which means I'm going to have to get flood insurance.
Yep.
Because when those sprinklers go off,
It's going to flood your house.
It's going to flood your house. Yes, of course.
Now, the only other couple things that you need to think about too is make sure that you vet the new people, vet the architect and the contractors.
absolutely.
Because there's a lot of, here today, gone tomorrow people out there. I've already heard people
Fly-by-night
getting ripped off.
operators. Yeah.
Yep. On the architects and also with the contractors, that's still going to be happening. And they're coming in there like, hey, wow, I'm going to make a lot of money here. Technically it should only take around, like $350 to $400 a square foot to build. Okay. But then you start adding all your other little perks on it and this and that. That's when the price level goes up.
Yeah.
So just make sure that, they vet the contractors, making sure that they, look at the work that they've done, talk to the people, one or, 3 or 4 of the builders that they built before. Make sure that they're here today and here tomorrow, not here today and gone tomorrow.
Oh, and they're licensed in California.
Yes.
That's another thing, because a lot of people are coming from other states. And other states,
And they're not licensed here.
they're not licensed here. Yeah.
So just
you just have to
be smart.
Be smart.
Be smart and
Do your homework.
Yeah.
that's it. Do your homework.
If it doesn't feel right, something
It's not
is
right.
not.
Something is not right.
Yeah. I know a couple people that are going through that situation right now with a contractor, and they told them one thing. And what's happened too is that some of these architects or contractors are taking on. I saw another contractor yesterday. I was mentioning to him about our garage situation. He's like, that's bull. He said, at subterranean, he says, they've never included that into a square footage because it's not habitable living space. I said, I know. And I said, hey, I know people who are looking for a contract. You say, I got 5 houses I'm building right now. I can't take anymore.
Yeah.
Compared to another contractor, he would say, oh, yeah, bring it on. I'll take it, And he's going to make it so thin that people are going to start having problems, trying to get things.
I think the first one is good where he says, I already have my hands full and that's what I'm going to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So besides looking at your insurance policy, you got to make sure that you have enough to rebuild, that you have enough for your personal property, and then you have enough for your housing. So there's 3 elements that you have to look at then. And there are exhibits that are attached to that you have to read. It's a pain to read it because it's all fine print. But my best advice is please be proactive on your insurance.
And it's so difficult to get insurance now after the fires.
Yeah.
Even areas where it's not affected by the fires,
right?
They are, not offering the policies anymore, terminating policies.
Now, one thing, because this was a national disaster, our insurance company cannot cancel us till 2 years after our rebuild. That is already stated.
Okay.
However, can they make it
Difficult?
difficult? Yes. A lot of people will have to get Cal Fair Plan, which a lot of people don't like that, which is funded by the insurance companies. That's another thing we found out. Cal Fair Plan is funded by the insurance companies. So
they're all entangled in this weave,
It's a weave of insurances.
Yeah, it's a weave of, okay, we can get it from another fund here, It's like with Edison, people say Edison's going to go bankrupt. They're not going to go bankrupt.
No, they are.
They got so many.
They're going to increase our price.
The mother company of Edison, I don't recall the name of the company, but they billions and billions of dollars,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just,
it's crazy.
It's crazy. It just puts, it's life. It's life,
yeah.
It's just like something that happened. You say, okay, oh yeah, hey, we went through, the 2025 disaster, but
when we got together in the community, there was somebody that survived the, which was this one that was so bad, that was flattened out, and they just started rebuilding
the Paradise Fire.
The Paradise Fire.
Okay.
And he came down and talked to us, and it was so wonderful to hear them and that we're not alone.
Yes.
They went through the same thing. It was good.
Judy, Vance, thank you so much for taking your time. And
Oh, my goodness.
One other situation I have is that since I lost 2 of the cars and I want to replace them, and Judy says, honey, you can't drive all the cars at the same time. So, so I got to do some negotiating there. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's a collector's item. You know,
Exactly.
You want to have it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's it. You know, it's the word stuff. Do you need it? No.
No.
Do you want it? Yes. Can you afford it? Maybe. You know, but I mean, that's life. Life is like, you know, it's the good old, the bowl of cherries. You know, you get a pit once in a while, but it's too short.
It is too short.
I mean, our daughter has a little granddaughter, which we're going to see her in a couple weeks, and she'll be 7 months, and it's like the height of 2025. You know,
Yeah.
and it shows you life keeps going on, and
Life keeps going on.
and it's just like
So this is the blessing. We lost a lot, but we have gained so much.
Yeah.
We got a granddaughter, and then my nephew has a baby. So that's life.
That's life.
That is what life is about.
and it's But other than that, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
coming.
very much for having
Yeah, it
us.
is so much. I mean, I didn't know a lot of things. I learned a lot of things, you know, from what you said. And thank you both so much for coming in.
And we'll keep you on tabs on what's happening.
Please do. Yeah.
Especially in 2 days. Exactly.
Your design, I think, I
Yeah.
hope it gets approved.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.